Hey, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast right here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and back with me this week, my co-hosts. They are the nation of podcast domination themselves, Richard Mullican and Josh Briley of P3 Radio. Guys, how are we doing?
Hello,
Awesome,
Senor
man.
Gene Jackson. We are happy to be here, man. It's a different night. We're going to be more energetic tonight because you're not catching us early on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, peek behind the curtain. We're changing things up. We're not recording this on a Sunday morning. This is actually a Friday night, believe it or not. Will it help? Will it hurt?
Uh-oh.
We shall
That's
see.
not a
But
good
I think that
sign.
cup in Richard Mullican's hand tells you all you need to know. He's going to be firing it up tonight, it looks like.
Somebody say something about a podcast.
Better get me off here before Coco Beware gets on there. I have some short things to say.
Oh, boy. I hope there's none of those incidents. But
I don't have time to edit. That's what Heen was saying there.
Before we get going, just a reminder, folks, if you haven't yet, go and pre-order the new Spellbinder action figure from rushfigures.com. It's a great figure, and our friend Del Rios is a great guy. And hopefully this figure does really well so we can get some more of our USWA favorites in action figure lines. There's a lot of these lines out there right now, and we're hoping to see more USWA and Memphis wrestling stars in there. And how do you make that happen? Well, you support these people. You order these. We've all done it. Go to rushfigures.com, pre-order yours now, and I can promise you that I am currently doing everything I can to at least get a couple more USWA guys in some figure lines, and we'll hopefully have some updates on that in the near future. But anyway.
So don't ask me how I know, but that figure's anatomically correct, Gene. Just so you know. That's what he was working with. It's to scale.
And in case you missed last week's show, another little fun thing that should make you want this figure, those tights that Spellbinder is wearing in that, I don't know if it's that exact set, but one very, very, very painfully similar ended up around our friend, Max Corbin. So that's another little highlight there. So, you might can even, do a custom if you want.
Yeah.
But order a couple of them. Keep one as a Spellbinder.
Yeah.
Change the head out. Make it into a Max Corbin, and you can have a grudge match right there.
Throw the body in the microwave so it swells a little bit. It looked like, you know how they used to package bologna? That's kind of what it looked like on me.
Richard has ordered several of them so he can experiment. So when he gets the recipe down, exactly how long you need to microwave it, what you need to do, we'll share it here on the show.
Get some darker paint for those liver spots that I got.
I feel like the first one's like, guys, 3 minutes, too long. All right, that's
looked like it was definitely an HR issue. It got a little dark.
Speaking of Coco, anyway, from the Observer last week. Speaking of last week's show, the Observer said on the August 2nd match between Jerry Lawler versus Bret Hart, the big match in Memphis, which went to a double disqualification, drew just under $17,000 at the box office. 2,800 people paid, which was the biggest house in Memphis that Dave could recall since they had a big singles tournament for the USWA Unified title several years back that Terry Funk won. And he says from everything he was told from people who were there, Chris Adams versus Brian Christopher stole the show last week. So
I thought you were going to say it was a shoot.
That was a shoot. How they stole the show. So with that being said, let's head back to August 7th, 1993 for another fun-filled episode of USWA Championship Wrestling. Dave and Corey kick things off per the usual. And after that quick first break we always take, we see we're going to be getting our use out of this new green screen we have as Dave is standing in front of it. And this week the screen reads, "A perfect night of wrestling." He then pitches to a clip from the 1988 AWA World Championship match where Jerry Lawler defeated Curt Hennig for the heavyweight championship. And I guess we're going to pretend that Curt Hennig wasn't just here a few months back, right here in 1993, wrestling Lawler once again. I don't know, perhaps because it ended in classic DQ fashion here in USWA. Maybe we decided we're just going to pretend that didn't happen. Maybe they're going to acknowledge it later on. We're going to stick around and find out. First match of the day. I know you guys are excited, especially Richard. The Moondogs, Spike and Cujo, with Richard Lee, hit the ring to take on the Intruders. And so take a moment, picture in your mind, folks, what a TV match between the Moondogs and a couple of masked jobbers would look like. And that's exactly what this match was. We don't need to show you a clip. If you've been keeping up with this show at all so far in 1993, you get it, okay? It's the Moondogs. It's a couple of guys in masks. They're getting the shit beat out of them. And then, of course, as you picture that in your mind, what do you picture next? You picture a run-in, right? It has to happen.
I pictured a gun in my mouth.
Bert Prentice leads two more masked guys out here who throw a freaking net over the Moondogs. And the Moondogs are seemingly caught by these two gentlemen in the net. So, Bert Prentice, two masked guys, they've caught two dogs in a net. Guys, what does that make them?
Dog catchers.
There you go. Look at that. How that works out there. Damn it, Randy, you've already failed us. we had high hopes that Randy was going to get some things done with the booking. We've got two dog catchers out here already throwing nets over the fucking Moondogs. What are we doing?
The only thing I could think of while this was happening was like the old Batman show.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Where the villains are almost like cooperating. It's like once that net was thrown on them, they were just incapacitated. They couldn't move, and they just got beat up for about what seemed like forever, but it was actually about 2 minutes.
I kind of wonder what it would sound like hearing somebody pitch, the dog catchers,
It's going to be great.
No, well, I was thinking of the character. Sorry, I don't know. I can't do that, can we?
I would think of a particular person. There's two different people really could have been pitching that. It could have been their manager, or it could have been somebody else. But
could have been somebody we blamed for the segment 2 seconds ago.
I see he'd have to hold a cue card up right now to signal what should happen now. But,
you had said before the show, no characters, so
Well, I just meant we weren't going to have the special guest like last week. I didn't mean we weren't going to. They can't drop in. I just meant we weren't going to go through.
Oh
my goodness,
that's the wrong one.
Wasn't who I had in mind.
Go back.
We didn't make that one, did we? Oh wait, what now?
I'm still in the green room here. You guys got a key? I know what I said about you last week there, Rich, with that bald head of yours and Gene. Could you let me out?
Okay, no.
Hey, Danny, hang out. Paul will be right with you in a minute. He needs to speak to you.
No, you know what I thought was funny about this segment, Gene, was how weak the dog catcher's offense looked to be. You have the Moondogs out there that just take what seems to be liberties with everybody they wrestle, and they beat the shit out of people. And these guys were swinging the chair like they were scared of retribution in the locker room.
Oh God!
Like it was like really light chair shots, like the Hogan Conan chair shot. Yeah. It was really light chair shots, and then somehow dog catcher number 2 fucked up his knee in the process because he's like all limping at the end.
He hurts himself beating up the Moondogs. And what's crazy is we've seen these guys have like a freaking 18-week feud with the Harris twins, who, as much as Josh may not like them, could have believably beat up the Moondogs. And at no point in that feud did they ever get a one-sided beatdown where they left the Moondogs laying. Not one time. But these two masked guys, who obviously, to me, didn't look really any more impressive than the two masked guys that the Moondogs had just spent the last 2 minutes beating the hell out of. I mean, let's take a look at these guys. Here they are. And through the grainy picture, you can't really tell a lot about them. Now, there were dog catchers here in 92, and those guys were the old school team that was known as the Devil's Duo. They were also known as the Barroom Brawlers at one point. Jeff Sword and Doug Vines. They had been enhancement guys all over the place, Georgia, a bunch of different places. I don't think that's who this is here. It could be, but based on their build, I don't think that's who these guys are. Plus, I think that those guys could have put a much more believable beatdown on the Moondogs and not blew their knee out in the process. So I tried to do some research. So far, I haven't found out who these guys are, and my usual sources don't have any answers. There's also nothing on Cage Match Wrestling data. So I've sent a couple of feelers out to some people who are somewhat learned of the Memphis territory. I'm waiting to hear back. So hopefully next week we'll have an update on who the dog catchers are, if they're even still around next week. But I'm guessing since we let them leave the Moondogs laying, we must have some plans for these guys. These guys must be sticking around for a little bit. And I can only assume that this happened because Larry Latham's not here to go, hell no, you're not leaving us laying. What are you crazy? We're the freaking Moondogs. Get out of here with that bullshit. But I don't know. I may be wrong. I may be being presumptuous, but it just felt kind of odd. Let's get a good shot of the perfect night of wrestling. I forgot to show that earlier. I wanted to make sure we got that in because Dave looked to be pretty happy standing there in front of that.
He's like, the king got some new colored markers.
Lisa Frank ain't got, or was it Lisa Frank? Yeah, I almost said Anne Frank. That would have been totally different.
Frank, definitely not.
Get that Anne Frank Trapper Keeper. You keep it in the attic and you don't ever tell anybody about it.
And the hinges are quiet on
it. After the break, we hear a promo from Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. And at this point, it's now a definite fact. We are definitely acting like the Lawler and Hennig match from earlier this year never happened. Let's hear a few words from Curt, who is now in front of what apparently is the, hey, guys, you're going to Memphis, stand in front of this promo curtain. Take a look at this.
Jerry the King Lawler. What an opportunity for Mr. Perfect. You come to the World Wrestling Federation, you still won't give me the match anywhere but in Memphis. You know why? Because that's where you got the stroke. Let's go back in history. May 9th, 1988. World Championship match between Mr. Perfect and the so-called King, Jerry Lawler. Well, Jerry Lawler, everybody knows you had the stacked deck. You had Jackie Fargo in your corner. He was your hand-picked referee. I know it, and you know it. Another thing I got on you, Lawler, is your video. Jerry Lawler's greatest videos. Headliner is the match where you cheated and ripped off the championship belt from Mr. Perfect. And I haven't seen you since, Lawler. And this Monday night, talk about a perfect opportunity. All you got to do is scan the camera from head to toe on me, and you can see I got all the right things in all the right places. I am what I say I am, Lawler. And that goes for all you people in Memphis and the whole South, as far as I'm concerned. You see, this Minnesota boy's heading down for one reason, and that's to get you, Lawler. It's payback time. I'm sick. I'm tired of what you stand for and what you look like. And I'll tell you what, Lawler, I'm in the peak of my profession right now. Mr. Perfect has never looked better, moved better than he's doing right now. And it's very, very simple, Lawler. I'm going to get another tape for you so you can go show the world one more time. Only this time, Jackie Fargo won't be the referee. Mr. Perfect's coming to Memphis this Monday for one reason, to regain my pride.
You ever heard the phrase, didn't age well? There's one line in there to me that didn't age well. It's at the very beginning when Curt Hennig says, Jerry Lawler, we're going to have this match in Memphis where you have all the stroke. And I was like, boy, in retrospect, that's nice. Not a great line.
I feel like my Anne Frank Trapper Keeper got you all fired up over there, Gene.
Well, never to be outdone. I'm not just going to sit back and let you take the hit by yourself.
I appreciate that, Gene.
It's like, my God, if we're getting canceled together, guys. So
I love
step
how
it up, Josh.
I steered the ship into an iceberg, and then you were like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna punch a few holes in these light bolts."
That's right. Full speed ahead. We got this.
So we were talking during the break. We think that curtain almost like makes these people want to change their accents in a way. Bret Hart tried it didn't work, and then Curt Hennig, he was kind of talking weird there at first, Lawler and all that. He didn't sound like Mr. Perfect. He sounded like he was trying to try something new, or I don't know.
He was messing up Lawler, the name Lawler, more than I'd ever heard anybody mess it up before in my, like Lawler. He was saying Lawler or whatever it was. You think it's because people got his last name mixed up? People still call him Hennig.
Hennig.
Yeah, and it's Hennig.
Hennig.
Right. I don't know, because even even Andy Kaufman said Lawler more appropriate than Hennig, and he didn't say it right most of the time, but he still got it better than that. But now he did resist the urge. I figured, I noticed his voice was a little off, as y'all mentioned, but I figured that like it was probably just a blanket instruction from Vince was like, all right, when you get in front of that curtain and you cut the promo for Memphis, you got to do a fake Southern accent at some point, because that was so out of character for Bret last week when he attempted that. I mean, you expect it out of some guys, and I wouldn't even been shocked to get it out of Curt Hennig, but boy, I'm still reeling from Bret doing it last week. Failure to communicate.
But you know what's funny? It depends on who you're under the influence at the time of,
Jack or Jim.
And I liken this to the one time I went to Arkansas to ASWF with Brian Christopher. Like, I was wrestling, he got me a booking and everything, and I got there and he told me beforehand, he's like, you got to be memorable. He's like, I want you to go out there and I want you to strut every time you do something good. And I was like, you know what? I'm never coming back here probably. And Brian and me are friends. I'm going to just do what he says. So he told me to strut after, and everybody, even the people I was wrestling, was annoyed at the fact that I was I'd never strutted a day of my life. I didn't even know how to do it. I was beaten down by my grandmother. What would I have to strut about, in life in general? But I did it. So you got to think that, like you said, that these guys are doing this interview in front of Vince or somebody else. It's like, no, you can't do it like that. You got to be a heel, do a Southern accent. Yeah. And they're just trying to do weird accents.
I feel like somebody's giving them some kind of strange direction. So now I got to know, was your strut like a watered down version of a Jackie Fargo strut, or was it the full on Jeff Jarrett, like exaggerated, absurd strut, or was it more of like a Vince McMahon?
In my head, it was like Jeff Jarrett. In reality, it was more like that guy gets a check and he hugs strangers. It probably looked terrible.
Like you were stepping on Legos or something.
Right. It's like, look at him.
Like Jackie Fargo fell down the steps and then he tried to strut to the ER.
Right.
He's like, my britches got around my ankles.
Is he strutting or is his ball stuck to his leg? I can't tell. A little bit of both.
Hey, to Brian's point, either way, they're watching you, right? They're going to remember you. Like, did you see that guy strut? Like, what was that about?
What's funny was I was the baby face. And I was such a heel.
And that, folks, is what's called a rib.
Yeah, pretty much. But I was like, I'm never going to be here again. Why not?
And after that showing, I'm definitely never going to be here again.
I remember
get invited back.
The Arkansas Mosquitoes. I don't know if that's still a thing outside the Valiant Arena, but I remember we were there. This is the only ring I ever wrestled in that had, I'm sorry to sidetrack it here. It's the only ring I'd ever been in that had real ropes. And I remember we stood outside for 0.2 seconds and had 42,000 mosquito bites. And Brian said it was because they farmed rice in the area. Farm or grew, whatever it is. They had rice and they had water sitting on the ground, so mosquitoes came around a lot. But dude, I remember some of the biggest mosquitoes. Like, I almost saluted one because I thought it was a bald eagle. Like, that's how big some of these mosquitoes were.
Mercy, Daddy, we got the biggest mosquitoes anywhere at the Van of Raven, baby.
Tell me about the mosquitoes from New York City. That's what they were
That's
doing.
why he's killing mosquitoes.
They all had head tattoos and Congo lined out of there. It was
That's where the
crazy.
clapping started. He's killing them. He takes both hands to kill those mosquitoes at the Valiant Arena.
But it was a great place other than being out in the summertime in June or July. Whenever we were there, it was the hottest and the most mosquito infested area I'd ever been in. Inside was great, except for me strutting.
That's when everybody decided to go outside.
I'd rather get beat by mosquitoes and watch that fat bald motherfucker. Sorry,
All
Gene.
right. No problem. No problem. Hey, you're the one. You were the first one to say that you were on a time crunch. This is on you, pal. So then Bert Prentice makes his way out with Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. And Penrod's head is hung low as he comes out. And let's check out this clip to find out why.
Melvin Penrod, you have let me down. With my guidance, you and C.W. Bergstrom became the world tag team champions. But no, Melvin Penrod lost the belts for us. You listen. Come over here. You listen to me when I talk to you. Listen to me. You have embarrassed me. You have humiliated me. And I am so ashamed of you. But I'm going to let you stay part of this family because I know you're going to take your punishment. Bergstrom, tell you what, Penrod, when you were growing up, you took your licks from your parents when you screwed up. You took your licks from your teachers. And now you're going to take some licks from your principal. Mr. Bergstrom, I've been thinking about this all week long. I don't think I deserve a whipping for it. I wasn't the one getting pinned in the ring. You caused him to be pinned in the ring, and it's not up to you what you think, because you don't think here. I do the thinking. Give him 30 licks. Look at me, Melvin. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You screwed up. You can either take your licks on your big fat butt or right between the eyes. How do you want it? I'm not going to take a whipping from you anymore. I didn't do anything wrong. Who do you think you are? Whoa. Oh, my goodness. Prentice first knocked to the deck by Melvin Penrod. Now knocked down by C.W. Bergstrom. Both of them jumping up and down on Melvin. Melvin's got his hands on that big old board, and he comes back after C.W. Bergstrom. Oh, boy. Penrod fighting back in there. And there goes the principal. And don't hide behind me, Prentice. And Melvin Penrod Jr. looking for Bert Prentice. There he goes. And there's Melvin right behind him. Oh, Penrod gone off to Prentice. There goes Bert Prentice. Yeah, he's out of there, but they're still going. Well, yeah. That could be an interesting situation.
So it looks like the babyface turn of Melvin Penrod Jr. is already here. And I feel like there's a lot that could be done with this feud here between the A student and the principal. But we'll see where it goes from here. We won't talk about it at this moment. We'll save it for a little bit later in the show. I see Richard just beaming because I think he feels like he knows where this is going. And wherever it's going, I blame Richard, by the way. I want to put that out there right now. It's his fault. So from there, we go to a video of Jerry Lawler in a pink Cadillac. He's with the Honky Tonk Man or the guy from the Jimmy Blaylock's Netflix special. I don't know. Anyway, Lawler cuts a brief promo on Mr. Perfect. He even manages to get in some old jokes on Bret Hart's parents in the process. This felt like very much a WWF promo from Lawler, which I think this did air maybe. I know because he's plugging the hitting match. So this is a straight up Memphis promo, even though we'll hear more from the King here shortly. But again, when this first popped on, I was thinking this is just maybe one of the WWF promos. But then as he got to talking about the match with Mr. Perfect, I was like, no, this is shot just for here. So it didn't feel like our babyface softball playing king, but
No, absolutely not. Like that's immediately what I thought, Gene. I was like, this is a WWF king because the flow of his promos, he's way more like cartoony heelish up
And
there. And he talks a whole lot faster than he does here. He's real more drawn out and explains stuff a lot better for the Memphis people, but like when he gets up there, very animated.
I know it's going to sound weird too, but it's almost like how he wears the crown. Because when he's in Memphis, he wears it different than when he's in a heel in WWE. When he's in WWF and he wears the crown, it's almost always like, yeah, you see how far down it is? But like when he's in Memphis, every time you see it, he's like one of those old farmers that just rests the crown on top of his head. Like it barely, like, I don't know
like
why.
A little pinwheel hat from
and not to mention, you don't usually see that particular crown in Memphis, and he's usually just carrying the crown around on TV. He'll carry it out and either set it on the desk or he'll hold it. Yeah. But you don't normally see, if you're watching the video cast, you don't normally see that little red one like that, the small one. He usually just wore that on the WWF. So, yeah, there was definitely, like you say, even just like you can just take a look at him and the way he wore the crown, his demeanor, his face, and definitely the way he talked was a lot more gimmicky or more of a character like than just, hey, this is Jerry Lawler out here talking to us on Memphis TV. But he's really I don't know, but I get what you guys are saying. It's a whole different vibe, and this was definitely the WWF vibe. But we're going to hear more from our usual Memphis king, but of course he's going to make use of the good old green screen we got going on over there when it comes time for that. But coming out of that, Eddie Marlin and Bert Prentice come out arguing, and Marlin announces that there's going to be a no DQ, no time limit, loser leaves the USWA match between C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. this Monday night. I don't like the sound of this, Josh.
This is how it tells you without telling you. And there's been a lot of situations that were a lot more serious than what just happened a few minutes ago. And it didn't get to that point. How many haircuts did we see? And there was never a loser leaves USWA between Jeff Jarrett and Brian Christopher. There was never anything like that with Bert Prentice, right? Or no, he did lose, didn't he? Did he? Is that why he went away, Bert Prentice?
No, he just
went away.
He just went away.
Oh, he lost one in the back or something. But either way,
he took one in the back, I'm sure. But
it was like this was just well, what do you got to leave? Like, I don't know. They quickly made that happen. It almost, tells you without telling you.
Yeah, Jeff Gaylord got hit like 22 times with the paddle, and no one had to leave then. I'm hoping for a double disqualification, though, and they both got to go.
All right, take it easy, pal. I've got some insight into this, and I'll save it for the end of the show once we talk about what happens on Monday night. But again, I solely blame Richard for this. He's been wishing them out of here since they showed up. Me and Josh has been having fun with this. When BT's here, he's enjoying it. And Richard's sitting there like he just smelled a fart every week during their segments. And now look what he's done.
And that's what kills me. He acts like it's not good. It is good. You're just, I don't know, man.
I'm going to say this too. If you get caught by Melvin Penrod in a foot race, you deserve to be hit with whatever he has. I mean,
well, I know we said we weren't going to have any characters at the end of the show, but I would love to at least hear a brief statement from Bert Prentice, how he may have sounded right after being chased around the studio by Melvin Penrod. When did Bert Prentice? I would love to hear at least a brief statement from him, if at all possible.
You want it at the end?
Wherever I can get it. We can either get it at the end, we get it now, whenever.
Well, we don't have the video.
Well, we don't have to have the video.
Well, we can
I think everybody knows. Spoiler. I'll be BT here. Spoiler.
We could have Dangerous Danny doing it, and
Dangerous Danny Davis doing an impression of Bert.
We'll get meta on them, Gene.
Oh man, that's gonna make my brain melt trying to think
Or we
about
can
doing
try to
it
get
like
my
that.
grandmother to do it. That's the only two options we have right now because Danny might have
space to get into.
But if you winded Bert from the chase, good God, that fat son of a bitch! He had the paddle in his hand. He's trying to kill me, Eddie Marlin. Get him, guy, coffee. Give me your toupee. I'm throwing it at him.
Would you have slowed down if he was going to shove it up your ass?
Don't get me started. Don't threaten me with a good time.
He's too fat to run that fast.
Oh Lord!
I wish I would have clipped the part of from the Observer where they were talking about that, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm sure we were told about it, but I'm sure it was a real sight to see two fat slobs chasing each other around the studio." I was like, "Jesus Christ!"
Yeah.
Already.
There's a way to kind of say that you didn't like something, and that's the real smuggy.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know Richard wrote for the Observer in 1993. An asshole.
Yeah, sounds just like me critiquing my gym class back then.
Well, I'm still waiting to find out that they stole. Like Richard had wrote in to the USWA like, when I get big, I got an idea for a great character I want to do alongside Mr. Bergstrom. And then Jeff stole it and gave it to this guy, and he's been bitter ever since. But,
I feel like I wish this into existence. I've been studying the Mandela effect here recently, and I feel like this gimmick probably went on longer, but I feel like I've prayed to the right God, and apparently it's Hindu.
100%. There are things on the USWA that I feel like you guys have somehow wished into existence. Like you've said it one week, and then the next week we pop up, and boom, it has happened. And I'm sure people are just like, no, they're watching ahead. Like, these guys are barely watching the fucking show we're reviewing. They're not watching ahead. Come on.
I was literally watching less than an hour ago, finishing up.
You know what's funny? It's like the Jerry's had their hand on the pulse, but the pulse was 35 years in the future.
So, spoiler, this is going to be another one of these that make BT's cringe. So we had decided that I've got something going on Sunday, and I had asked the guys like, "Hey, can we record a different night this week?" And they were like, "Yeah, we can do Friday." So last night, which was Thursday, they said, "Hey, are we still doing the show on Friday, and what time?" And we settled on a time. And well, Richard first, but then Josh followed. Like, "Oh, I should watch the show tonight."
You're like, that would help.
Yeah, they almost. Yeah, I was like, that would help. I was just like, so we almost got here Friday night, and then they'd been like, "Oh shit, I just realized what I forgot. I haven't seen this show." Like, it's all right. You'll figure it out. I wish I hadn't watched this segment. On this week's Jeff Jarrett Gets Called Fabulous by anyone they can find who isn't a wrestler. Jeff talks to a baseball player. I assumed since last week was all about Slapshot that this was building towards Jeff pitching to a clip from Major League or Field of Dreams or some shit.
Dude, I was so hoping at some point he looked at the guy and goes, "Hey, have you ever seen the movie Slapshot?" I laughed so hard at that thought, and him just like, it wasn't even Jeff. Jeff gets interviewed by people that says he's fabulous. It's just Jeff saw a movie and he really wants to promote it.
He wants to find somebody that likes Slapshot as much as he did. If that was the payoff to all these, it would almost be worth it. Because it's almost like, I don't know if you guys watch Adam Ray's Dr. Phil character, but how at some point, every one he goes, "Have you seen Oppenheimer?" Like, I feel like that could be Jeff's new thing. So, have you seen Slapshot? I'm like, I'm a baseball player, dude. Yeah, but you can still watch Slapshot. It's a great movie. Let's check out this clip, which would then kind of spin into the old Conan O'Brien skit where old boy showed that clip from Mac and Me every time it was on for 25 years or whatever. But
see,
anyway.
the baseball player that he got, it's like if he was to do the wrestling equivalent, he's like, you know Chris Frazier? Like
Exactly.
I didn't know who the hell this guy was. And whenever I thought it was a rib, dude, because whenever Jeff kept saying, all right, and then what team did you go to? This guy had been on like 12 teams in 6 years. He can't be any good. And then he's in the minor leagues.
Yeah,
Like,
they were like, what team did you play for? And he's like, well, I hope you brought a snack.
I may have to take my socks off to count the rest of them. I can get through the 10 right here.
Right. He's announcing teams that went out of like they aren't even in the league anymore.
Montreal Expos.
But yeah, like he went.
It was a lot of teams.
It was a lot of teams. Like I was expecting him to go, well, I played for this team, because he's only like what? He's in his
30s.
Oh, he's in his 30s. He got drafted when he was 21. We found that out. But like he got drafted and then immediately was traded apparently and then traded 22 more times. This man has seen every Major League Baseball stadium in America.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't unpack my bags.
No.
Oh man, yeah,
Just
it was
Velcro on the team name because they're going to peel it off and put another one next to it. Just recently got traded to Terman's Terminators, where he plays softball against Lawler's Army next week.
And it was just bizarre. And then Jeff proceeds to hit like 12 home runs off of him. Like I said, he can't be that good.
I don't know that your TV was better than mine, but every one of mine looked like Jeff just hit up like pop flies into the outfield, because everything I saw a person in the outfield catching the ball, and then they had Jeff like pop one straight up. They had the pitcher go, well, I'm not even barely throwing this. So then he like totally buries him. Like It was like the pitcher was like, I'm not even trying. And Jeff was like doing the same swing every time, and it looked like he was just the shittiest baseball player. And then at the end, the guy's like, you are fabulous. It's like, none of this is making sense.
He actually didn't say that to Jeff. I don't think he did. I made sure.
No, he did, and he got interrupted. He goes, you know what? You are fabulous. And Jeff cut him off real fast.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I must have.
He did. He said it. But Jeff cut him off to deliver his line, and it felt really awkward.
Yes. Yeah.
And he wasn't going to say it again. They were like, hey, y'all talked over each other. Dude's like, why are you saying you're fabulous again? I didn't mean it the first time. And they're like, Jarrett's not going to give you your Subway coupon if you don't fucking say it. It's like, well, you better get it from that first take, because that was it. Yeah, I hope we don't have a lot more of these Jeff Jarrett segments. Like I said, if he would have, if the rib would have been he was showing everybody slap shot every week, then I could have maybe got into it just for fun. But no. Like last week.
Real quick, can we take a guess? Because like you said, we don't watch ahead. Mm-hmm. Can we take a guess if they do one of these next week? What profession is the guy going to have that Jeff is trying to emulate?
Oh, absolutely. I think that would be that actually would be a lot of fun. So.
All right. I'm going to say small-time race car driver. Should have waited for the music. Small-time race car driver, Gene?
Yeah, small-time race car driver. Josh, what's your guess?
I have to go with football. I don't think we've covered football yet. It's
the
about
showboats.
time.
The showboats are gone, though. They don't have the minor league football team anymore, and they've already done the Chicks and the Redbirds.
I'm going to go tennis.
Tennis.
I think we might see him pull like a John McEnroe or something next week.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was the race car and you just see the race car in the background, them trying to put it out because he's wrecked it terribly.
I didn't remember Bob Holly was there in '93. Hey Jeff, it's Thurman Sparky Plug.
So that's the professions we're going with. We got to write these down so we know for next week. And I mean, it could just be a musician, or they could just drop his ass off at Mud Island for a little while. Let him do something there.
I would have rather seen Mickey Gilley trying to hit baseballs than Jeff in this segment. somewhere watching this segment, he was making this face if you're watching this VHS. You're like,
That boy sure can't hit a slap.
Man, he talks a lot about slap shot.
I'm starting to think he ain't so famous.
Even his movie choices aren't that good. Now that I think about that, DDT sucks.
Richard's right. That is a So has become tradition, not just the tradition of Jeff goes and meets someone and they call him Fabulous. We always immediately come out of the segment straight into a match from the Fabulous One. This week, his opponent, Mr. Clyde.
Oh.
Yay. Dave starts the match by telling us that Jeff is a heavy favorite this match. No shit, Dave. Really? Thanks for that, Karnak. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Typical Jeff squash match. Leaping DDT. Jeff wins.
So, did you notice at one point that Mr. Clyde seemed like he was about 0.5 seconds off of selling every move in the corner? Like he'd get punched and it'd be like 0.5 seconds. It was like Mr. Clyde's selling ability was a wartime correspondent in like Iraq. And how they go, what are you seeing there? And the announcer in Iraq goes, well, we're seeing a lot of things here. Like that's Mr. Clyde was so delayed on his selling. Like Jeff hits him and he's drawing back for another one. And Clyde's like,
you know why, don't you?
What's that?
Do you remember that super kick from Chris Adams
last
week? He's still feeling it. He's still concussed, man.
Put that poor boy out there. Let him take that shitty tea that Jeff Jarrett's going to throw at him.
His eyes are still glassy. He's like, am I supposed to be able to see sound?
Are you sure you're good to work today? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
Little blood in the ears never hurt anybody.
I still got to eat, man.
Poor bastard. Yeah, that's all I could think in that match. Is like, man, he needed a couple weeks off after that super kick. Whew, that was a rough day at the office there. So, we take another commercial break, and guys, what's the best way to follow up 2 Jeff Jarrett segments in a row?
A Jeff Jarrett segment.
You guessed it, a third Jeff Jarrett segment. Of course. What else would there be? We go to footage of last Monday night's match between the Fabulous One and the Vampire Warrior. Let's check out a little bit of that. We haven't seen much match footage lately, so this seems as good as any, right? Check it out.
Time is we're about 11:28. Lawler Bashan jumps in it and goes melting away on Jeff Jarrett from behind. About 11 minutes and 28 seconds. Referee Paul Neighbors a call for the bell at 11:28. Vampire Warrior comes down on the Fabulous One. Bergstrom and Penrod in with the Moondogs. This whole thing has turned into a complete brawl.
That was ridiculous. Mr. Texas had to save Jeff and Luna Vachon in there. The match begins with Jarrett getting mugged by the Vampire Warrior and Luna. And then it ends by DQ with Jarrett getting mugged by the Vampire Warrior and Luna and his savior, Miss Texas. What do you guys think of that?
It same old, right? And I
Where
was
should
just
it be leading?
yeah, exactly. I mean, I do get excited whenever I see the evenness it seems that Luna and Miss Texas are going through. She's not getting ate up. She's actually making Miss Texas look good as well. But everything else, just standard, like you're talking about, standard Moondog stuff. I like Penrod and Bergstrom, but they weren't very featured in this replay, so I didn't get to enjoy them very much.
Yeah, like I said, I think we know where this is going. Do you want to comment on that, Richard, before we see what's next here?
No, I mean we all know. We all see it coming.
You know what? We can't skip this over anytime. It's always the highlight of the show.
That situation evened up when this woman right here arrived, Miss Texas.
I have wrestled a lot of girls, such as Luna Vachon, Dirty White Girl, and Lauren Davenport. But Luna Vachon, you different. You pretty tough. Now you walking around thinking you somebody big and bad. Well, Luna Vachon, Monday night, we will see. Now, when you get in the ring, you better get ready for old-fashioned butt kicking. Because Miss Texas don't back down from a fight.
So, did you realize that she rattled herself because her first example of women she's fought is the woman she's talking to? She said, I done fought a lot of women, such as Luna Vachon, Laura Davenport,
And the Dirty White Girl.
and a dirty white girl. It's like
Luna
you just told-
Vachon. That was her next step. Luna Vachon. Blah blah. I'm gonna do that. You done said about Luna Vachon.
But her face, like she realized she screwed up. She's like, I done fought a lot of women, Luna Vachon. And then she's like, oh shit, I'm talking about Luna. Oh, dirty white girl, Lauren Davenport. She was so rattled after that.
Sherry beat the shit out of her so bad she won't even say her name anymore.
No, don't you ever let me hear you say my name on TV. Ever. I will come back down there.
I fought a lot of women like Luna Vachon, and then I
Like
beat
you.
up Luna Vachon.
At that time, I teamed with Sapphire against Bert Prentice and Lauren Davenport. And who was that other woman that was here? I don't remember. Y'all don't either, so don't even act like you do. It was some woman. She was banging me, Mike Miller. Ooh, that's nasty. Ain't nobody want to bang me, Mike Miller. That's disgusting. All right, so it's time to take our first podcast commercial break of the day, and we'll be back in just one moment.
Have you?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out. in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
And next up, we're going to have just the second match of the show, guys. We've had a lot go on, but this is the second match as Brian Christopher is going to take on Tony Williams. And of course, this is a match that you can throw in there anytime. You've always got that backstory of these guys used to be tag team partners in there as the new kids. So you've got that story to tell. And they always have a good match, right? You can always count on these guys to pull off something good. Brian is sans Miss Simpson this week. I felt like Josh knew that was coming. That's why he had to step away for a moment. We make mention on commentary of the fact that these guys are former tag team partners. So, like I say, it's always fun when these guys wrestle because you've got a built-in story. You can always lean on that at some point. You can talk about how they used to be partners. And it makes for a story, whether it's a random TV match or a spot show match. Everybody knows that history that they have. So Brian starts out in control. He goes over to the desk and says, this is going to be the easiest match he's ever had in his life. Then he heads back in and just gets owned by Tony Williams for a few moments. That gets the crowd fired up. They were really into this match. Then it's back and forth for a couple of minutes. Brian pulls out a chain. He hits Williams with it and gets the win. But I have to say, this was one of the better matches we've seen on TV in recent times. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, dude. And I love the way Brian worked this match. He went out, BS'd for a while, got the crowd really into it, and let Tony actually get some stuff in, aside from just going out there and just doing all his shit, rolling them up in 1, 2, 3. And it was a really good match for TV. It was the flow of it. It was just really good. And then just on a random match, not for a title, not for trying to save going out of town or whatever, just to get a win, Brian pulls the chain out. I was like, yes, do that shit. Get a pin, not a DQ, not a this, a real pin. And he did some devious old school heel shit, pulling the chain out. I was so happy watching this. It was refreshing.
You can really tell, like, and this is coming from experience working with Brian, who Brian likes. And, Brian had every opportunity there to just eat that guy up, eat up Tony Williams. I mean, he's in a feud with
Adams.
Chris Adams. I was almost said Tony Adams. He's in a feud with Chris Adams. He doesn't need to give anybody anything. And you can tell that he likes the future Kid Wicked in this one because, they probably grew up together around each other and they were tag teams. So you can tell he gives him a lot here. And like Josh said, like he used something to beat him. I remember when I was working in Memphis, we had a name change because Corey didn't like our names. Two big bald guys named Genocide. He didn't like that. And they renamed us the Hurricanes. Well, before the show even started, they had pretty much told us we were going to lose to Too Cool 2, which, that's fine. They were the tag champs, whatever. But they had us basically jobbing out. And Brian was like, where are the Hurricanes at? We got to get them up here. And me and my partner were just standing there like, we're here, Brian. He's like, oh, fuck, y'all are the Hurricanes? It's like, yeah, they changed our names. And he's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And he pulled Too Cool 2 in, and he was like, y'all are going to jump them before the bell. They're not even going to have a chance. Like, he really took care of us because Brian liked us. So Brian had a way of doing that. If he would make it make sense if he liked you, like to where you're just not getting jobbed out and beat like on TV, he's going to have a reason. Either they're going to jump you before the bell and you don't have a chance because he cheated, or he's going to do what he did with Tony Williams here and he's going to use a chain to beat you. But he took care of him here, and that speaks to what kind of a guy Brian was. If he thought you were good, he liked you, and he thought you added something to the business, he was always going to try to keep it to where you still had a fighting chance.
And we saw that with the kid, Eron Hatchett, a couple weeks ago. Brian let him get, a couple of drop kicks in, looked good at the beginning of the match, and that kind of sticks with you, And to me, if the guys can pull off something that looks good, it means more at the end of the match when Brian wins, if they look good, or rather than when they're just a freaking punching bag, like Jeff and Mr. Clyde earlier. So I think Brian understood that. And like I said, in this instance, he's got such history with Tony, Williams. It makes sense for him to make him look good. So, good match. I enjoyed it. And for those counting along at home, we've had 2 matches so far, and we've had 2 pins. So we're setting records here today on the USWA show. So I'm sorry, no, that's not the second. I'm gonna lie. That's the 3rd match because the Moondog match. I take all that back.
You don't count that as a match.
Even a match because it was such a. Anyway, Brian goes over and. Dave immediately points out that Miss Simpson isn't here this week, and Brian says she's right here as he holds up his finger and says she's wrapped around his finger. And then Dave points out this footage that check out here.
Let's see right here.
Chris is still slowly to get up in there. Christopher goes over and grabs one of the chairs. He's got the chair up on the top turnbuckle, trying to get it in there. Christopher's up on top. Gets in the ring now. Hey, Toni Adams is telling Brian Christopher not to do it. Tony saying no. And Christopher throws the chair onto the floor. After Toni Adams gets in the ring, oh boy, I don't know what in the world's going on here. Tony tells him, hey, don't do it. Chris Adams goes over and grabs Toni Adams. Tony, oh boy, and Christopher, he just pulled out a big chain. Nails Chris Adams, tells Tony to get out of the ring over there, grabs Frank Morale, 1, 2, and 3. 8 minutes and 54 seconds, Brian Christopher is going to be the official winner of this grudge match. What a well of a bout between Christopher and Adams. 8 minutes and 54 seconds, your winner of the bout, Brian Christopher. Brian Christopher, your winner of the bout. Christopher continues pounding away on gentleman Chris Adams. Ties Chris up in the top 2 ropes over there. And Christopher telling Toni Adams to give him what in the world that Tony's got in there. All right, he allows the strap, a big leather strap, grabs it from Toni Adams, and Christopher's telling Toni Adams to strap Chris Adams with the strap in there. Gives the strap to Tony. Christopher then shoves Toni Adams over and tells her to strap away on Chris Adams. Hey, Tony throws the strap down and she's gone. She is out of here. There goes Toni Adams. Boy, she throws the strap down. I tells it out of here. Christopher grabs the strap and he's strapping away on gentleman Chris Adams. After getting the victory, Christopher steps back in there, and you talk.
So that's an interesting turn of events here, as Brian's going to come off the top rope with a chair. Tony, Miss Simpson stops him, but then Brian still manages to use the chain to cheat to win. But then Tony refuses to strap Chris Adams afterwards with the belt. Is there anything you want to say about the match before we get to this promo here? Because I'm going to kind of tie it all together. But if you want to comment on this first.
So, the only thing I want to say is how big of a heel Brian would have been. It would have been a hilarious moment. Is when Dave said, "Where's Miss Simpson?" And he said she's right here, and then he just dirty Sanchez Dave's nose. Oh, good God!
Can you tell, Dave? Can you tell?
Why does it smell like cabbage? Get that woman a doctor's appointment. But no, it felt like. Did it feel like Brian wasn't supposed to beat the shit out of Mr. Adams with that belt? And he was like, well, he stepped back through the ropes.
Since we're here.
The first one he hit him with, Chris Adams' arm looked like it came out of the rope. You know how, like, certain
Yeah.
video games will phase through things. It looked like his body was like, get out of here. And it was like, nope, got to stay tied up. We got to do this. That was the only thing I thought about it. I thought it was a good story, but I was like, I don't feel like Brian was supposed to really hit him with that belt.
I like where it's leading. I like that. Okay, the first week they had the DQ, which I immediately thought was bullshit, but big picture, it was good because coming into this second one, you could beat Chris Adams because of the chain. Brian's using the hell out of that chain, but it makes sense because he is a chicken shit, piece of shit heel, and it's perfect. It's perfect in the sense of we've just done run in, DQ, DQ, DQ. Nobody can get a finish usually, especially something like this if we're going to draw it out. But it actually helps this situation where you can have a pin. And it fires Chris Adams up even more, you would think.
Yeah.
You know, he's got to come back. And Toni Adams is in question now. She's doing the whole, who am I really going to be with? And she didn't even show up this week. So I'm interested to see where it's all going.
I'm definitely interested. I'm going to circle back to what happened in the ring here. But first, after this, we got a pre-recorded promo from Chris Adams, who's talking with Corey Macklin. Number one, my favorite part about this promo is it provided what is now my favorite screenshot from any of the shows we've done so far. If you're watching the video cast, the look on Corey's face right here, along with the look on Chris Adams' face, but that look on Corey's face is priceless. That's now my favorite Corey Macklin picture.
Something wrong with that guy's eyes in there. He's on some kind of drugs.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't want to be here right now.
It's almost like Chris Adams is naked from the waist down and Corey is not trying to look at it.
I can't get past the almost black eyes of Chris Adams. It's like he's a serial killer possessed or something. That is creepy. That's unsettling to me.
He ain't got no pants on. What is Jackie Fargo in here?
From that picture, it looks like Chris Adams is trying to teach Corey how to whistle, and Corey's just not getting it.
It's like, I don't think so. So this promo from Chris Adams, he doubles down on everything he's been saying since he's gotten here, right? He's saying how, and this is the thing this is my only issue I have with any of this. Overall, I like the storyline. I like that it's coming from a real place. Here's what I don't like about it. I feel like we're not all on the same page about what story we're telling here because Chris Adams comes in the initial promo and the second promo and now in this promo. And his thing is basically my whore wife has gone off and hooked up with Brian Christopher. I've been sending her alimony. I've been sending her money. And this bitch has been spending her money on her little boy toy, Brian Christopher. So the version he's telling, she's all in on this. She's left him. Now she's kind of like the old angle from the 90s where Elizabeth was spending Macho Man's money on Flair, and it's like this bitch, she's willfully spending her money on Flair. And then from the other side of it, Brian's shoving her around and he's kind of mistreating her at this point. She's all torn. She doesn't want to see Chris get hit with the chair. She doesn't want to hit him with the strap. She's just, she's so distraught and everything. It doesn't come off like a chick who ran off from her husband's and is spending money willfully on Brian. And they're like, ha, 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 we're sticking it to you. I don't know. It's like those two stories do not coexist. They don't go together. So I wish they would kind of figure that out, what her role in this is. Does she feel bad or does she not? Is she with Brian or is she somehow forced to be with Brian because he's pushing her around and he's treating her like shit? I don't know. But those little details of the story I have a problem with. But at the root of it, I do like that we've got something rooted in realism more so than the principal and the student and that kind of stories that we've been telling, and then dogs and dog catchers. Anyway, then we go to Jerry Lawler in front of the green screen. And this is more of the King we're used to having in the studio here. He's in his tank top. He's plugging the match with Mr. Perfect, and this is all going to be part of the perfect night of wrestling coming up this Monday night. And I didn't pull any of the promos from Lawler. I didn't have a problem with them, but I thought they were pretty standard Lawler promos. I didn't think we really needed to spend any time watching them here. If you guys feel differently, I'll make sure to pull one next week. Next up, PG-13 is out here and finally getting some mic time for the first time in months. I mean, they quietly in the still of the night, unbeknownst to anyone, turned a babyface without saying a word. They disappeared quietly in the still of the night without saying a word. They reappeared as heels without saying a word. And now all of a sudden they're getting some mic time. And JC Ice, Jamie Dundee, he's saying that people call them too small. But they were watching wrestling on TV the other day, and they turned on the WWF, and they saw some dude who was so skinny he could hula hoop through a Cheerio on TV, beating guys like Razor Ramon, Damien Demento, and the $1 Million Man, and they just can't figure it out. And then they proceed to talk shit about Sean Waltman, and wouldn't you know it, the 1, 2, 3 kid just happens to be here in the studio today in Memphis. And let's check out what happened from there.
So we can't figure out how Stick Boy is doing what he's doing. We don't understand it. If he was here today, if he was around, if anybody would give JC Ice and Wolfie D the chance, we could beat Stick Boy, and if we beat Stick Boy, it would prove we could beat Ted DiBiase, Damien Demento, Razor Ramon, which proves we would be better, which makes us the what?
Kid, have you heard what these guys are saying here?
Yeah. I've been sitting back there. I heard both you guys talking. Hey, and that's cool. I understand you guys got your own opinions. I'm a small guy. You guys are small guys. I went to the WWF. This is all I did. I went to the WWF. I said, all I want's a chance. I think I can prove myself, and I think I have proved myself. Either one of you guys would like to prove yourself in the ring with me? The offer stands right now.
Well, that's the way. That's what he said. 13, and JC Ice jumps into the ring. 1, 2, 3 kid dumps him over his back. Here comes the referee.
Boy, we got ourselves an extra match here today on USWA Wrestling. Nice. Boy, 1, 2, 3 whips him into the ropes. Back drop from the kid, and JC lands on his feet. Oh, boy, big kick from 1, 2, 3 kid.
Wolfie D says, hey, I'm a little taller. Pick on me. He steps into the ring, and 1, 2, 3 kid goes after him.
Yeah, he takes down Wolfie off. Big foot from Wolfie D slows down to 1, 2, 3 kid.
See, you want us to prove? We're going to prove to everybody that we are the greatest.
Comes across the top of the head of Wolfie D. Another kick from 1, 2, 3 kid. And there goes Wolfie D. Oh, there goes both of them now. Watch that double team to 1, 2, 3 kid. They tackle kid and take him down. Oh, boy.
JC Ice tackled him, got him off his feet. Now they're both putting the boots to him.
All right, so I guess technically that was a match with Kid first versus JC Ice, and then against Wolfie D, and then they both run in for the DQ. But I've got no problem with that. Just set up the match for Monday night. What do you guys think of that whole little segment there?
I mean, it was, if you're a stickler for the rules, I mean, obviously it was a bit confusing. It was like Freebird rules. Just as long as it's PG-13, you can just go in there and just everything changed. Everything started on a whim, though. So,
yeah.
It
wasn't officially a match. It just kind of was a challenge that spun into somewhat of a match. So.
But the crowd was so into it, man. Did you hear them girls squeal at every little thing? Either PG-13 or 1, 2, 3 kid did. They were just eating it up. It was a good feel, man. And it kind of just set up the excitement for Monday night.
Here's my thought on the process. if I was cucked out like TD still would have been cucked out by being a referee and then them not needing him, and then Paul Neighbors has got some torture to do in his basement, so they call him back. I don't care who's wrestling Sean Waltman either. I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. We've had dog catchers out here. We've had Jeff Jarrett doing shitty DDTs. I wanted to wrestle, and they called me after 2 weeks of not returning my calls. Fuck it. Just do whatever you want to do out here.
He came with the gear, with gear on. They're like, you got the wrong outfit, Sean.
Paul Neighbors is doing some mechanic work, if you know what I mean. So you're gonna have to be referee again. He's like, fuck it, I'm gonna let people do what they want.
Like 3 guys in here, 3 little skinny guys in here. I'm bigger than all of them, and I gotta be the referee. Okay, all right then. I see how this is. Whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the fact that when Jamie charges the ring and runs in, the very first thing that happens is this huge backdrop. Like, he took the hell out of that backdrop, and then he goes to take another one, and he twists and lands on his freaking feet. Like, good. I don't know. Good stuff. I enjoyed the whole segment, honestly. And I always like, Jamie on the mic. That was fun. So it's got me hyped up for the match Monday night. So from there, we get a yelling promo from Richard Lee. Yeah. Okay. Followed by our next match, the USWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, holder of the Southern Dinner Platter himself, Vampire Warrior, with Bert Prentice, and he takes out Kip Morris, who I don't think we've seen much of so far here in the USWA, but I remember seeing him on some spot shows and being on some shows with Kip Morris eventually back then in the 90s. So basic squash match. Warrior ends it with his DDT from the second rope. Now, we know how you feel about Jeff Jarrett's leaping DDT. How do you feel about this second rope DDT we got going on with the Warrior here, Richard?
It's definitely a Lloyd's of London type account policy holder type thing that, we talked about it during the break about how Mr. Perfect was on a Lloyd's of London before this, and they're like,
well, he was like, I'm in peak condition. I was like, he was on Lloyd's of London less than a year before that statement.
Yeah, you might as well call that DDT the Widowmaker, because I feel like old Jerry had to make some calls because he did that move. Like, well, you know how you had a husband? Well, you don't anymore. We're sorry. We'll send you $25 a week. You know what he'd be making.
As a twist on our last take from the last match, perhaps they pulled Kip Morris and TD Steele aside. Like, one of you can referee, one of you can take the DDT off the second rope, and TD's like, I got a ref shirt.
Yeah. I feel like he was like, I'm going to take a what now? No, I'm good. I'll count to 3.
No,
to be fair, it looks great on TV.
Yeah. Usually murder does translate
real.
well to camera.
If you aren't taking it, it looks great. Having ever been involved in wrestling changes your perspective of what things look like and how you feel about them. Like, if you're just a fan, you're like, man, that's an awesome looking DDT. But if you've ever wrestled once in your life, you're like, shit.
Oh, right.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's a hard no for me, pal.
Yeah, I mean, when you're younger, you think those bumps off the top rope doesn't hurt, and then you realize it's a flat surface. It's not like it's a lumpy mattress that you fall on and roll off. Oh man, I watched that back and I was like, good Lord, you couldn't pay me enough to take that.
Yep. Plus, those Memphis rings are questionable at best most of the time. So,
how about a roll up, pal?
Vampire roll up.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, I'll look scared. I'll look like you're gonna bite me.
Yeah, roll me up and then bite me. And I don't mean that in a vulgar way. I'm talking about your gimmick.
I'm gonna get that drop for next week, Gene.
So we're getting ready to take a look at the Monday night card for the Mid-South Coliseum. But first, let's take our podcast commercial break, the final one of the day, and it's going to be this commercial bumper. If you're watching the video cast, is going to be a throwback, an old favorite of ours. Check it out. We'll be right back on the other side.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Pro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Pro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
We mentioned old Mean Mike earlier, and I thought, hey, let's take a look at the famous chair throwing skills of one Mean Mike Miller. Since Miss Texas dumped on him earlier, we figured we better give him a chance to show us what he's all about. So, all right, guys, let's go and take a look at the card for this Monday night, see what all this was building to, and then we'll see how many people showed up to watch it.
Perfect night of wrestling.
August 9th is the night.
Too, yeah.
Perfect night it is indeed. Opening match that night. Scott Taylor will be going against the Master of Terror. Middleweight title on the line as Danny Davis goes against J.C. Ice. Then you got a loser leave town. No time limit, no disqualification. A student, Melvin Penrod, right here today said, I'm not going to take this anymore. It wasn't my fault that we lost the tag titles. I'm not putting up with it. So, Bert Prentice says you're fired. You're not a member of the team anymore. Tried to get Eddie Marlin to fire Melvin Penrod, tell him he couldn't wrestle in the USWA. Eddie says I got a better idea. Both Penrod and Bergstrom say the USWA is not big enough for the both of them. All right, one of them can leave. We'll have a match Monday night on the Perfect Night of Wrestling to find out who stays and who goes. USWA tag titles will be on the line then. Moondogs with Richard Lee. They've got the belts. The Dog Catchers. Rugged-looking team brought in here by Bert Prentice. They brought the net. They netted the Moondogs, and they left. But it could be a totally different situation if the Moondogs know they're coming. And that will be the case Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum. The feature attraction between 1-2-3 Kid against Wolfie D. Now today, 1-2-3 Kid gave J.C. Ice and Wolfie D the opportunity right here to prove how tough they were. They ended up trying to double team and ran out of here. This is going to be 1 against 1. Wolfie D against the 1-2-3 Kid at the Perfect Night of Wrestling. Big grudge match then. Brian Christopher with Miss Simpson in the corner. Chris Adams with Toni Adams in the corner. Which will it be? Brian Christopher said, don't worry about it. It's going to be Miss Simpson. No doubt about it. She'll be in my corner for the grudge match Monday night. The Vampire Warrior, Luna Vachon, will be his partner. They'll go against the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, and his partner will be Miss Texas. But a perfect wrap-up to a perfect night of wrestling Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig, will be at the Mid-South Coliseum. This time he'll be trying to take the unified title from the King, Jerry Lawler.
I don't know if y'all noticed that on
We
the
did.
graphic.
We did.
They spelled Hennig right, but spelled Kurt with a K. What the?
How do you fuck that
has
up?
Vashon always been spelled Vashane?
No.
One of
They
Vashani.
screwed up Vashon. They changed they've been spelling Bergstrom Bergstrom. It was RUM this week. Like whoever did the chirons was like special. Anyway, that's the least of their problems. So it's time to answer those all important questions, guys. The ones I ask you every week. So let's get to it. Guys, what was your least favorite part of today's show?
Moondogs and the dog catchers, which is the weirdest segment ever. At one point, there was a jobber outside the ring doing the very least, trying to pull one of the dog catchers out, and it looked like he was just trying to tie his fucking shoe. It was the weirdest thing ever. I hated that. That was the only saving grace, was to see the hard camera shoot of a guy looking up at the ring going, well, he's really beating the piss out of him. Let me touch his boot. No, don't touch your boot. Is that no? Like that was the only saving grace of that whole thing, but it was still my least favorite segment, very closely ahead of the Penrod stuff.
Oh, God.
All right, Josh.
You know, I absolutely love Bert Prentice. I've made that very clear. He's my Memphis manager guy. But even that son of a bitch cannot get this dog catcher thing going. I promise you, it's not going to work. The net stuff, I mean, and I'm factoring in, you know, Dr. Frank. And some people think Freddy Krueger's and the leather faces and stuff like that was bullshit. I love it. But still, you can factor in all the monster stuff and all that. But those fucking nets. And then the vicious Moondogs, just in a state of paralysis where they could not move when those nets hit them. It was absolute trash. I mean, like it was. I mean, it's a planet away from my Harris Brothers hate, but that fucking net, I can't. I can't with this shit.
We've all thrown a blanket over a special needs person before. That's not how they react.
No, it's not over. It's far from over. I would assume. I've never done that.
Yeah, no.
Recently. So a couple of things there. I would rather watch Freddy versus Leatherface in a 60-minute Iron Man match than watch anything the Moondogs and the dog catchers are going to do. That's one. Two, there's no excuse because they should already know. Now get this. As random as it seemed that the dog catchers threw a net over the Moondogs, there was the defense of like, well, they're dog catchers and they caught the Moondogs. Me and Ray Russell have been following Memphis in 1985, and 2 episodes ago in 1985, the PYTs, Coco Ware and Norvell Austin, come out and threw a net, probably that same net that was thrown in the corner of the studio in 1985, and they went, well, that was stupid. Don't ever do that again. Come out and threw a net over the Fabulous Ones and tried to attack them. And immediately Stan and Steve's like, the fuck did you throw a net on us for? And they flung it off and then kicked the shit out of Coco Beware and Norvell Austin, as you would. Or perhaps somebody was watching like, all right, here's where they got it wrong. We threw a net on the Fabulous Ones. They didn't sell it. They tossed it in the floor like it was stupid. Moondogs, you want to get paid this week? You're going to sell this shit. You're going to sell the hell out of this net. Like, all right, Larry's not here to tell us not to. We'll do it. It's going to look stupid. Just know. It's going to look stupid. And I'm sure Richard Lee's like, you threw a net on my dogs and made them sell it? You son of a bitch. I'm sure that yelling in this week's promo was 100% legit, because I can just imagine them telling him, like, all right, we got these 2 masked jobbers. The ones for wrestling. No, not those masked jobbers. We got 2 more masked jobbers. They're going to come out and they're going to be called the dog catchers. Like, we've already done this, dude. Like a year. It ain't even barely been a year ago. Like, no. But get this though. It's going to be so literal this time. They're going to come out and throw nets over the Moondogs, and they're literally going to be called. Okay. All right. Fine. Yeah. Like death. We don't give a fuck. We'll do it.
It wasn't even a heavy duty net.
No.
Well,
it was like a bait fish net, what you would throw out.
Wouldn't it have been funny if they had like written fines for Richard Lee because the Moondogs actually bit somebody? It's like, you're also not going to get your mail for a couple of weeks, brother.
You could have caught butterflies in that net.
Right. But somehow you contained the wildness that is the Moondogs with
the
this
Moondogs who have ran rampant for 20 years here in Memphis. Nobody could stop them. The Fabulous Ones couldn't stop them. The Harris brothers couldn't stop them. 2 jobbers with a net, they're done. Shut it down.
Their kryptonite was a weak ass net.
Jeff Jarrett, if Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett could have figured that out a year ago, the feud of the year would have had a much different ending.
Could have saved a lot of bloodshed.
Jeff Jarrett's like, every week I mention how we use the kitchen sink out here. All we needed was a freaking net. But anyway, what was your most favorite part of the show this week?
I loved all of the 1, 2, 3 Kid PG-13 stuff. I thought that was really good. Other than the fact that it not making sense that they're just letting both of them run in, I thought both of them complimented 1, 2, 3 Kid, and I just love PG-13. I think they probably knew that they deserved better at the time, but they were young and they made some mistakes. But I always thought they deserved better than what they got at this early stage because they were so over. I will say that I liked them so much that I've forgotten they were heel again. So when they come out and started talking about 1, 2, 3 Kid, I was like, yeah, fuck the 1, 2, 3 Kid. He's a heel anyways. And then when it came out, I was like, oh, I forgot what genre we were in. It's like, okay, so that's how much I liked PG-13 that they almost made me hate the underdog 1, 2, 3 Kid.
Well, don't feel bad. The fans forgot that they were heels too, obviously, by their reaction. Josh?
Yeah, I'm echoing that, man. When I was surprised, and whenever I'm watching this back today, and 1, 2, 3 Kid pops out, I mean, I'm sitting in my car at work, and I'm like, oh shit! I mean, it was like I was 10 years old again, dude. That is a big deal to me. Like, you got this WWF guy who was super hot at the time. Like, a kid like me watching Raw and the Razor Ramon stuff with the money bag and all that happened, that was an insanely big deal to a kid like me. And to see him in the Memphis studios fixing to go against one of my favorite tag teams at the time, I was in hog heaven watching this shit back. And, like I said, it really was special also that they made it a point to say this is a feature attraction match. Like, folks, get your ass to Memphis. It's going to be something special.
I remember even as a kid, like 1, 2, 3 Kid was special to me, but I couldn't get over the fact that I'm like, did I see him on Global a couple years ago doing that weird ass bungee jump match?
Well, that's kind of one of the things I kind of liked about him when he turned up on WWF. Was like, hey, I remember him from Global. Like, he had those badass matches with Jerry Lynn that were really ahead of their time. In '91, those matches were next level.
Yeah, except for the bungee jump match. That was a weird ass match.
Was he in that? I thought that was Mike Davis and
the
Taylor.
Was it them? I thought he was in that.
No, it was just them.
Oh, my bad. I got them confused.
Okay, Sean Waltman's canceling the hit on you right now. He's like, I wasn't in that. Stop saying that, Richard. I wasn't in that.
I could have swore it was him.
But if you can bring video proof that it was, we'll retract. Me and Josh will both retract our statement.
I can AI doctor anything.
Oh Lord, that's true. That is very true.
Make it a 3-way dance bungee jump match.
Look, Santa Claus is in there with him. Look at it.
Yes. So for me, I will agree with you guys. PG-13 and 1, 2, 3 Kid. I can forgive the nonsensicalness of it because of the fact that it came off like PG-13. We're just out there cutting a promo, and the kid was like, "You want to talk shit? Come fight me." So it wasn't a sanctioned match per se. It was just him challenging them. So technically, you could have them switch out. It didn't really matter. he challenged both of them, so he had to fight both of them. So I'm okay with that. The only other honorable mention, my second favorite thing that I would have had to kind of go back and forth on, which was my favorite, was Brian's match with Tony Williams. I loved the match. I loved, like Josh pointed out, the fact that he cheated, or maybe Richard, I don't remember. You both mentioned it at one time or another. He cheated to win, but we got to win. Chris Adams wasn't there to run in and attack like you would have assumed was going to happen. So both of those were really, high spots on the show. But it was special for 1-2-3 Kid to be here, and that PG-13 is back. They're getting a little mic time. And we're like, all right, maybe they're not going to get jobbed out. We're actually going to do some cool stuff with them. So if this was actually 1993, would today's television have inspired you to go buy a ticket for Monday night's card?
Maybe not the television per se, but the names that were going to be on the card would have inspired me. I was a huge Mr. Perfect fan as a kid. I remember my first match. I did that little Mr. Perfect hitting whip that he did where he'd snapmare somebody over and then do the little snap over them. I used to love that. So I was a huge Curt Hennig fan back when I was a kid. 1-2-3 Kid was really hot. I like the stuff that they're doing with Jarrett and the Vampire Warrior, like how they're building that up. So yeah, I probably would have paid money to go see this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to see this show. You got the key three matches: 1-2-3 Kid, Wolfie D, the Penrod versus CW Bergstrom, Loser Leave Town. I love the gimmick. I got to see the Board of Education explode. And then, as Richard's talking about, even if he has shown up this year, Mr. Perfect was an insanely huge deal back then. I mean, like Richard talking about, I was doing all that shit in the yard with him. We were emulating Mr. Perfect more so than a lot of other wrestlers. The whip, the snapmare thing, the perfect plex. He was so good, and all the vignettes and stuff too. He's a huge deal. And to see him versus the King, and I like how they're taking it back, where they're mentioning AWA title more than once, trying to, and it didn't seem like, if I'm remembering correctly, earlier in the year, they didn't really do that per se. I don't think, unless I'm remembering wrong.
They touched on it. They didn't focus on it, but they did touch on it, that was the last time they had fought, which wasn't entirely true either, even then, but.
It seems like now they're making it a bigger deal and trying to make it
special.
Yeah,
because Lawler even said in his promo, the second promo, I think, you're upset that you lost this title. Now, this unified title that he has now has been down many roads since he won the AWA title in '88. He got stripped of the AWA title. He got stripped of the world class title. But in the meantime, he had made another title. But technically, since he didn't give back the AWA title that he was stripped of because he said he didn't get paid for Super Clash 3, he literally still had the physical belt that they're now using for the unified title, because the Snowman took the unified title that they had made and palmed it, and it disappeared for a long time. So technically, yes, Jerry Lawler beat him for that belt that he had in his hand, but he didn't, it's just a lot had happened since then. But he was trying to make it sound like the lineage of the belt, the championship, was the exact same one he won in '88. That wasn't entirely true, but we'll forgive him for that. But yes, I too would definitely have been at this show for a number of reasons. I would want to see how the Penrod and Bergstrom thing is going to play out. I would want to see Wolfie D and the Kid. I'd want to see what's going to happen next with Chris Adams and Brian Christopher. Jarrett Miss Texas against Luna and Vampire Warrior. We kind of, groaned over it earlier, but it's an interesting concept. Luna and Vampire Warrior as a mixed tag team is fun. And then of course, there's a lot of gimmicks that you can say, hey, there's a number of people who could have played that gimmick. I don't think that Vince McMahon could have found anyone else on earth in any era that could have made a better Mr. Perfect than Curt Hennig. I just don't think he could have. He was absolutely perfect for that character, no pun intended. And yes, I definitely would have went out of my way to come see him in action, regardless of the circumstances. So let's find out if anyone else agrees with us. August 9th, 1993, at the Mid-South Coliseum, 1,500 people paid $10,000 to come see this card. We're down 300 from last week, but it was Bret Hart, and Curt Hennig was here earlier in the year, so we're not going to take too much offense to that. Opening match, Scott Taylor pinned the Master of Terra, who's back. We haven't seen him in a little while. Second match, holy shit, look who actually showed up this week. The little red Camaro comes screaming into the back lot. Nightmare Danny Davis defeated JC Ice. And in
he wore the belt his whole match. As a
he took that belt with him. My God.
Did you say he wore the belt the whole match? I don't want to give it to anybody.
He wore the belt, and I'm sure he had it taped to where you couldn't get it loose. Bert Prentice and his cronies was not going to steal it from him. By the way, I don't know if anybody noticed, but speaking of Danny Davis and the middleweight title, Disco Inferno is not here this week. I don't know that we see Disco Inferno again. That may have been why Danny Davis thought it was safe to come back to town. Third match. Josh, brace yourself. Principal C.W. Bergstrom beat Melvin Penrod Jr. in a loser leaves town match. Richard, screw you for celebrating this.
Celebrate good time. You ain't got to go home, Melvin, but you can't stay here.
Oh, you piece of shit. Okay, all right. Fourth match. The USWA Tag Team Champions, Moondogs, Spike and Cujo, beat the dog catchers by disqualification. Of course. In the fifth match, the 1-2-3 Kid defeated Wolfie D. Actually billed as Wolfie D this week and not Kelly Wolf. For whatever weird reason we did that last week. In the sixth match, Gentleman Chris Adams pinned Brian Christopher. So we got a clean finish there. In the seventh match, Jeff Jarrett and Miss Texas defeated the Vampire Warrior and Luna Vachon. No E in these results that I have on the name Vachon. And then, hold on to your hats, gentlemen, and even you, Richard, who's not wearing one right now. In the main event, the USWA Unified World Champion Jerry the King Lawler pinned Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig. It wasn't a DQ. It wasn't a run-in. It wasn't a count-out. He friggin' pinned him. Wow.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yes. It absolutely was.
Does it give any details? I mean,
was there a reason? What was there an injury during the match?
Kurt's back blew out again. He threw the X up. He was like, "Come on, pin me."
Well, go ahead, just pin me. I'm fine. I'm hurt.
I'll be interested to see the clips next week. But then again, to this day, we've never seen a clip of that first match they had earlier in the year. So we may not, but if we know anything about Memphis wrestling, if Jerry Lawler pins somebody, by God, we're going to see it. We're probably going to see it. It may become like the new commercial bumper going into commercials, like they used to do with Hogan back in the day. So I feel like we're going to see this, and I'll be interested to see exactly what the context of that was. So in the Observer, it said the August 9th show was pushed as the perfect night of wrestling, with Jerry Lawler defending the title against Mr. Perfect in the main event. The show was really well promoted, with both of them talking about their 1988 match that drew 8,000 fans when Lawler beat Curt Hennig for the AWA heavyweight title. However, this show was a big change as we see a WWF wrestler come to town and actually get pinned in the main event. So after sending the message that these big matches were great to see, but there was never going to be a payoff, we're starting to teach the fans that, yes, you can come out to the Coliseum. You may actually see one of your Memphis people get an actual win over a big star. It also said, also in from the WWF this week was the 1-2-3 Kid, who was originally going to be brought in to wrestle Brian Christopher. But since the Brian Christopher-Chris Adams feud has taken off better than they expected and is getting great crowd reactions across the territory, they opted to keep Christopher and Adams together this week and shift to the 1-2-3 Kid working with Wolfie D instead. I thought that was interesting. Not that they were going to end the Chris Adams and Brian feud. They were just going to detour from it, but they decided it was too hot to even take a week off. So they pivoted to Wolfie D. So I think that was probably a good call all the way around. They mentioned in this article that they don't know who the dog catchers are either, but they're working on trying to find out, because I'm sure they're so obscure that how would they know? They were probably working like outlaw shows the week before. It says Melvin Penrod turned a babyface, but he should be gone by the time you're reading this. Prentice and C.W. Bergstrom blamed Penrod for him and Bergstrom losing the tag titles. Blah blah blah. They just described the angle that was happened on TV. This is the line. Oh yeah, where it said it was hilarious to see a 400-pound fat slob chasing a 300-pound fat slob around the studio. And it should be noted that after this angle, not only is Melvin Penrod gone, but Bergstrom is also gone from the territory as well. So you could have made everybody happy and let Penrod win and let the go out on top. Whatever.
No, let's just kick him in the balls one more good time.
Yeah. So okay, so here's the backstory on that. You guys know, we talked about when Melvin Penrod first debuted, I had a phone conversation with Melvin Penrod about his time in the USWA. And during this time period, his grandfather had gotten really sick. He found out he had cancer, and it got to a point where he didn't have anybody to take care of him, so he went to the promotions like, look, I've got to go home and be with my grandfather. I need to leave. And so that's why they dropped the belt. So there was plans. The plan had always been for them to win the tag titles, build them up as a team, and eventually ease into the split where Melvin turns babyface. And if you play this out over time, I could see where this could have been a good angle. It's kind of what BT, spoiled on the first day. Penrod was on the show. That was the long-term plan. And, they felt like people could get behind Penrod because they could, relate to, being picked on and, shitty principals and teachers and all that good stuff. But once Melvin said, hey, I got to go, they're like, well, hey, we need you to stick around a couple weeks, drop the belts, and do a loser leave town. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And that's why we got the fast-forwarded. We go from we lose the belts, we split, we immediately go directly into a loser leave town match, and now Penrod's gone. But Penrod was brought in because it was like, what the fuck are we going to do with this principal character? Well, once Penrod's gone, we really don't have anything else to do with the principal. I assume that WWE, now this is just me speculating here. However, I assume that WWE had looked at Bergstrom and was like, nah, we're not going to use him because, there was talk from Meltzer, or at least, in the Observer, if it didn't come from him, that the speculation was C.W. Bergstrom was brought in as a principal to eventually go to the WWF and feud with the 1-2-3 Kid. Well, here, the 1-2-3 Kid is in town, and we don't have him do anything with Bergstrom, and then Bergstrom's gone. So I think they had decided that, that wasn't going to work. I think probably, they decided that he wasn't the worker for it, and I think that's why we eventually, I don't know if one of you guys or maybe BT has mentioned at some point, we kind of pivoted to, Shane Douglas with the Dean Douglas character, maybe was going to be that, that version of that. But anyway, that's the reason that Melvin Penrod, that whole angle blew up in the course of 2 weeks that could have played out over months, is because Melvin had to go home and take care of his grandfather. So, me and Josh enjoyed the angle. Richard didn't. He wins this round. We'll get you next time, Richard Mulligan. Don't you worry.
Can we take a moment? I will remember you. And that's as long as you get, because that's as long as that angle was.
You shouldn't talk about his grandfather like that. That was really shitty.
That's literally who I took that you were talking about.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. I'll steer into this kid. He's dead now, I'm sure.
Oh my god! Wow.
Well, I mean, my grandfather got diagnosed with cancer at the same time.
Well, let's make a joke about it.
I wasn't making a joke about it. It's a horrible disease.
I know. I'm just busting your balls. You better like that gimmick next time.
Why did he never come back? That's the question.
Maybe his grandfather lived for a long time. I don't know. I didn't ask. Like, hey, when the old man kicked it, why didn't you come on back? Because by then the principal's on, and what the fuck do you do? With this 100-pound nerd character, I mean, that was kind of pivotal to the whole thing. So I don't know.
I love how you've like tacked on to the shittiness of my comments. You're like, I love how you're pulling me out with a lifeline tonight, Gene. You're like, maybe his grandfather lived longer than he thought.
He could still be alive today. I didn't ask him. It's kind of a bummer, Conversation started out really good, and we were having a good time, and then he's like, my grandpa was dying of cancer, and I had to quit the business, and I was like, oh, okay. I kind of stopped the line of questioning there because he never went back to wrestling. He did want to do the podcast because he really didn't want to talk about it publicly. I guess because he's like, these shithead podcasters like to come on these shows and talk a lot of shit, and not really. But he was probably afraid he would run into a Richard Mulligan type that would suck her in. It was probably like trying to get him on the show and then, blindside him with some, attack. Like,
so you still a fat piece of shit now, or did you?
How is he doing?
Usually he seemed like he was in a good place, and he was out, right before we talked, he was walking his dogs, and
that's good.
He's got other things he does now outside of wrestling that,
still able to walk.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of weight from what I hear.
That's good. Shape. That's really good.
I think you're insinuating, trying to see if he still had his legs and feet, and he does. I'm happy to report.
When you say he lost a lot of weight, was it like fat or was it like a femur?
It was in limbs.
Yeah.
This dude is such a nice guy. I had such a great time talking to him. It was very cool to talk to me.
Yeah.
And now you have trashed him on the show every single week. You're like, this angle's terrible. He's fat. He's not good.
Let's be honest. I got 3 summers left to myself. I'm high blood pressure, bald, and like I told you earlier, a medical history longer than a Walgreens receipt. So
let's be honest. If Corey Macklin would have wanted to bring C.W. Bergstrom back to Rhythm and Brews, who's to say, the Hurricanes might could have been a couple of students,
Yep. We probably would have been.
I'm bringing Blitz out here right now. Your grades keep going the way they are. You're not going to get to play next season.
They'd be the B- students.
The F student. I tried bringing the A student in to wrestle. That didn't work for me. So now I'm bringing in Blitz, who, he can play football. He's not exactly top of his class, if you know what I'm saying.
He's used to the teachers always passing him, thinking he's a sports guy.
We won't let him even take chemistry because our insurance won't cover that shit. His dumb ass will blow us up.
And then when it comes time for you to turn, you'd be like, Jeff Gaylord told me that you like to give 60 licks when the rule is 6 licks, CW.
Give him 30.
Why am I so high pitched in my interviews? Oh boy.
Well,
but yeah, that's good. He's lost weight. He still has his legs. That's always a good thing.
Yeah. The fact that you assumed he didn't is very offensive.
Well, come on now.
How dare you? Richard Lee.
I mean, let's just say it like this. There's certain stereotypes that, hold up, and I'm in that stereotype. So I'm glad that he's turned it around. Hopefully he did it like, the Jarrett from Subway without all the kid stuff. But
you haven't seen any shots of me below the knees in quite a while, Richard, for all you know. I'm sitting here with 2 nubs hanging off the chair, fighting back tears. Like, that's why I quit stand-up comedy, Richard. I couldn't stand up.
Which gets us into our new sponsor, Wolf Chase Lemon Brace.
Artificiallimb.com.
Yeah. Looking like Lieutenant Dan over there.
If you can't stand up there, he'll have them put in there where you can go there.
Oh, man.
In there?
No, I'm right there with you, man. We did an event last week, the Black Time Boxing event, and just going up and down those stairs 5 or 6 times, just did me in. It was like Ric Flair had me in a figure 4 for a week.
Oh, yeah.
So,
like, hey, dude, I'm announcing from outside the cage, man. I'm sorry.
I did
We
that
didn't talk
once.
about this beforehand.
Yeah, I did that once. They didn't have stairs at a show, and my legs started swelling up.
They would keep turning the spotlight over before the match over to you out there standing next to the cage.
Stand in, pull up a chair, and sit down. And
Are you ready? Like, where's that coming from? I don't see anybody in the ring. Like, he's down there on the side. Down there. See him?
Oh, man. Yeah. But it's good. He's walking his dog. His grandfather made a full recovery. Whatever happened, I'm happy for him.
They're like, I'm glad Butterbean can stand up straight these days. Look at him. He's announcing.
Yeah.
Tremendous. But no, moment of silence for me and Josh's favorite wrestler so far of the USWA 93 era. I know Richard's celebrating right now, but I know somewhere right now, BT's not happy. I'm not happy. Josh isn't happy. Richard's going to consider this a win, and we'll give it to him. You won this round, Richard Lee. God damn it, you won this round.
Leaving a hell of a void in the locker room physically. They're like, we got all this room for activities now.
You're so mean, man. Like I've never seen this side of you. I've never seen you this vicious. I mean, I knew you you're a funny guy, but I didn't know you were this hateful.
What happened was he saw the Moondogs get caught in that net, and he thought they were going to haul his ass back to SeaWorld.
I'm going to have to edit this show.
I'm sorry. I'm just joking.
10 minutes of assholery.
I'm just joking. I'm just messing. I hate the guy left on the terms that he did, but I can't say that I'm sad to see him go. He was not one of my favorites. But I'm sad.
No shit. That's like Dave. That's like Dave Brown saying Jeff Jarrett was a heavy favorite. And don't you dare make any heavy jokes about him. Don't you do it. Don't take low-hanging fruit.
No, I won't do it.
Wait a minute. Don't use that either. You're going to take that wrong. All right, folks.
He did make a great comeback in that movie that Michael Jackson did the song about when he jumped over the kid. And they got him. No, nobody. Okay, cool. It's a Free Willy joke, but
I get it. I'm saying this right now. Yeah, we're so far past that. You
sorry.
If you led with the Free Willy
joke,
I
probably should have done
we
that.
We would have gave you a little something, but that's folks. If you'd like to voice your opinion on the hatefulness of Richard Mulligan, please email me at uswapodcast@outlook.com, and I will read your angry emails right here on the air next week, and let Richard know what a terrible person he's being and how ashamed we are right now.
Yeah. Yep. You won't be able to say anything to me that I don't say to myself in the morning looking in the mirror. So let's just be honest.
Well, don't take out your issues on poor Melvin Penrod, sir. That's between you and the mirror. Don't drag him into it, by God.
Fair enough. I apologize.
All right, so let's try to end this on a lighter note. Jesus Christ. So what can we expect?
Get off of Melvin Penrod.
What can we expect? The lighter. Oh, yeah, I didn't even mean it. I wasn't setting you up. I wasn't intentionally setting you up.
I'm sorry.
What kind of meanness can we expect on P3 Radio this week? I'm sure it hasn't been recorded yet. You're probably going to do it after we get.
No, we hadn't done it yet, but I'm sure we'll talk a lot about TikTok and Red Dot number 3.
God, I hope not.
That's on the agenda. I do have a lineup of talking about teachers that have boinked students, but they're all female and they're hot, so they get away with no jail time whatsoever. It's a running thing we talk about here, and there's a couple of teachers there that we're going to talk about tonight. And also, there's one in New Jersey that was friends of a family, and they're like, "Hey, your kid looks a lot like my 15-year-old son." so just arrested. She's probably going to get off with a slap on the wrist too. So just all kinds of craziness on P3 Radio. Kind of what we've done to Melvin Penrod tonight is kind of what we do to everybody.
If you're into to meanness and people being drugged through the mud and berated for no reason, check out P3 Radio. Unbridled. I'm not there to judge Richard, and boy, it's just unbridled.
Hey, I will say, it's the Vince McMahon approach, not the pooping on people's head part, but the we won't do to anybody that we won't do to ourselves, because there have been times that we have drug ourselves through the mud.
Literally.
And I've drugged Josh through the mud once.
He has drugged me through the mud. Absolutely.
I have drug him through my mud sometimes.
It was actually my mud. It was my yard.
I don't think you got the reference I was making there, but now that you've said that
I
been drugged through your mud doesn't mean what you think it does, Josh. I promise you.
See, my heart's in a good place, unlike Richard Lee.
Your heart's in a good place, and his, you know what's in a bad place.
Unlike Melvin's heart that was in a bad place.
A lot of strain.
A lot of congestion.
Oh my God! Dress for warm weather when you go to the other side.
I gotta get him in right now because he's not coming back. So when do we do these?
Check out WrestleCopia.com for all sorts of great podcasts, professional wrestling related podcast and content that is much nicer than what you'll hear here from Richard. And anyway, I don't know what to say now. Check out the tinyurl.com/USWA podcast, where you can find our store, where you can find t-shirts, hats, all kinds of great stuff. Anything you can name. There's posters. There's all kinds of stuff. We're not letting Richard design any of the shirts or hats or anything, so don't expect to find any mean slogans about fat people or anything over there. We're going to keep him out of that. You can go to I'm sure the P3 radio store's probably got something awful that he's designed, so go there and see that. You can go and join our Facebook page, facebook.com/retro wrestling review, and join the nearly, where are we at now? I'm losing track, like 9,000 and something.
Yeah, it was almost 10 the last time I checked.
Yeah, we're well over 9.5. So please join us. We put a lot of fun videos and pictures and articles out of magazines as it relates to the USWA, and you can check out all the Twitter, the Instagram. I guess you can forget that TikTok there. That's not going to be a thing after Sunday, apparently. Just ignore that. If you're watching the video cast, just ignore that part. That's not happening.
You mean you're not willing to get a VPN and stay with TikTok?
What do we do on TikTok?
I haven't updated that TikTok in 6 months as it is. So definitely not getting a VPN.
What do we do on TikTok? Do we put mean Mike Miller in like dance videos or something?
I was just throwing up random clips of the show on there at one point, and then I stopped because I lost interest. Hey, make sure you check out our friend BT's stspod.club. He's got a lot of great wrestling content, all his different podcasts over there. A lot of good stuff. He's been doing it forever, just like these guys. They've got a lot of time in. So like we've talked about before, you could listen every single day for years and not hear everything they've done. So please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We appreciate all of you. Make sure you check out DougGilbertPodcast.com to check out everything related to Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Wildfire Tommy Rich. Their podcasts, their Facebooks, their Twitters, all that stuff is there. Check it out. Is there any last bit of meanness you would like to get in before we go today, Richard?
I'm good.
Josh, is there anything nice you would like to say to counteract all the meanness that your broadcast partner has said?
Melvin, I wish you well. I hope you're doing great. You're jogging through the neighborhood with them 2 dogs you got walking. And Richard, you can go to hell.
Well, that's fair enough.
Tony Schiavone would be proud of that. Richard Lee, you can go to hell. And don't forget, buy a Spellbinder action figure. And now, just to spite Richard, me and Josh are about to start a campaign to get a Melvin Penrod figure designed. So suck on that, Richard. And join us next week for another episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast right here on WrestleCopia.com.